Hi, Michael. Welcome to the Cast Couch.
Hi, Mark. Great to be here.
Michael, we're both celebrating 40 years.
Can't believe it. I know. Incredible.
I know. Looking back to 1984, what were you doing in 1984?
I was in a small bedroom trying to paint and trying to make paint. Had a 16-foot square bedroom in Tunbridge Wells, and the amazing thing is that I'm here now, which was always one of my ambitions. I didn't know it's going to take me 40 years, though, but still making paint after 40 years.
Well, we're very excited that this year, obviously, in your 40th year, you've decided to celebrate very big and give us all an opportunity to have 40 new colours.
Yeah, it was a bit of a coincidence, really. As you know, we've just developed watercolours, and it allowed me to get my hands on many new pigments. And I would look at them and go, wow, this would look great in oil. And I played around, and then I thought, well, I've got to add some of these to the oils. And before I knew it, I was adding 40, and a friend said, well, that's great, because you've been making paint now for 40 years. 40 new colours to celebrate 40 years, so what could be better?
Yesterday, we walked into the Islington store, the flagship store, and you've been there a few times to showcase stuff. And what do you enjoy when you're in front of the artists who love your paint?
I love surprising them. I mean, usually the first surprise for them is when I dive in with my fingertips, because they always think that I'm going to use a knife and do it in a very but I'm so hands-on. And then, what I invariably do is I put my fingers in, and then I go, oh yeah, like this. And that's that moment they sort of share with me, because anyone who paints in oils, they know that this whole tactile, touchy-feely thing that goes on with oil paint. And it's the first thing I do, because I cannot not respond in that way. Whenever I'm with my own material, I think oil paints is one of those things that has such a wonderful smell, and you have to like the material to be a good artist. And it doesn't matter whether you're a watercolorist or 3D, clay, whatever it is, you have to enjoy the tactile quality of your material. And oil paint certainly has always done that for me.
Why do you think in the history of art, oil paint is always sitting at the top?
I see it as nature's gift to us. Mother Nature was kind enough to give us linseed and other oils, and it just has this wonderful relationship with pigment. It can bring out this sort of stained glass quality that oil paints have, the transparency and the luminosity, the lusciousness, and it's just gorgeous stuff. I
know you're fascinated by Rembrandt.
Yes.
So when did Rembrandt, and if you can say it, come into your life?
I think when I was a student, back in the 1970s, I would walk into the National Gallery and look at them, and the various, particularly self-portraits, and they to me were the quintessential old master, particularly the one that's described as a self-portrait at the age of 34. It's the one that I believe has been cut in. It's got a rounded top now, which I think has been unfortunately cut into it, but it's just, to me, such a gorgeous painting. It's really a question of when wasn't Rembrandt in my life, I think, is a better way of looking at it.
So, Michael, when did you start thinking about that it was a good idea to start making your own paint?
Well, I walked into the National Gallery. This would have been while I was coming to the end of my student career, something like 78, 79, something like that. And I looked at a Rembrandt, and I know it sounds laughable. I thought, why can't I paint like this? Clearly the genius was missing, and still is. But more importantly, for the sake of the conversation today, the material was fundamentally different. And of course, I was used to the likes of the normal names of paint that we're all familiar with, but I just simply couldn't achieve the surfaces that I could see. In simple terms, if you just look at the background of a Rembrandt, just say brown shadows. And I thought, well, my paint doesn't even look like that, even if I just painted a panel of brown. And I'd look at the little caption beneath each painting, and of course it would say oil paint on panel or on linen. And I was thinking, well, I paint on linen, but my paintings certainly don't look like this. So I went back to college, and there was a particular tutor, a guy called Graham Beeching, he was the materials guru. I sat with him and I said, Graham, I've just been in the National looking at Rembrandts. And he sort of knew exactly where I was headed. And he said, yes, I know. I said, well, come on, what's the difference? And he said, well, you've got to remember that artists at one time used to all make their own paints. And of course, a little light went on, and well, so will I. And he said, well, look, if you want to know more, just grab the Ralph Mayer book. There's a section in there on how to make paint. And the principles of making oil paint's incredibly simple, really. It's essentially pigment and oil with a little bit of beeswax just to keep it incorporated in. And I thought, well, this sounds so simple.
Well, you've kept it simple. I think that's one of the key things.
And the more simple things can be, the better. And people often say to me, what do I put into the paint to make it like it is? And I say, it's not what I put in, it's essentially what I leave out, which from my point of view is all the junk. We refuse to do that. And that, therefore, makes the paint more intense and luminous in many ways. And as soon as I started grinding my own colours, I would look at a surface and go, yeah, that's more like the Rembrandt. But that was the end of the similarity to the Rembrandt, I'm afraid, at that point. I wouldn't ever pretend to have ever followed in the footsteps from then on. But yes, it was that little eureka moment of suddenly realising that, yes, I could make paint that would have been familiar to those old guys.
Well, and we're all glad you did. I think that's why we're here today. Obviously, you're going to showcase the first 20 that you've already produced. I'm very excited and I'm incredibly grateful that you've understood we're celebrating 40 years at Cass Art this year.
Yeah.
And as part of one of those 40, you very kindly, the colour that we're celebrating with is Opera Rose.
We should both be wearing sunglasses with it because it really does poke your eye out, doesn't it?
Well, it does. It says fluorescent pink, and but it's a beautiful colour. And I only just saw it a few minutes ago, and I have to say, as you said earlier, that you do this very unique thing where I don't need to open the top and get my fingers dirty. I can see the colour, and I think it's. So I know you're going to show us a little bit later how we got there, but thank you for I think indulging us, and hopefully all the painters around the world with Opera Rose and a little bit of our celebration as we come together with 40 years.
Well, thank you. In some ways, it's an absolutely crazy colour. I mean, many artists will probably look at it and think, when on earth am I going to use that? But flower painters, of course, can see an immediate application for it. And I think so often that artists can be too conservative, and just to sort of try that in with other mixes and see where it goes is as we keep on saying, it's got to be fun or is not worth doing.
Michael, this is the time I've been waiting for, where you can pick some of the colours that you love and that got us here, that we brought along today.
Well, sure. I mean, the first one that I'd love to show people is Turner's Yellow. Now, of course, there's the name there, and a lot of people think this was the colour that the watercolourist, of course, used, Turner. It's not, actually. There's a bit of confusion because the inventor of this was another Turner, and he patented it. And the original pigment, and I can't remember as I'm sitting exactly, I think it was a potassium-based pigment, was not 100% light fast. So what we have now, of course, is a colour which replicates it, which is light fast, and this is Pigment Yellow 216. The great thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is that it's such a marvellously versatile colour. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're figurative or non-figurative, portrait or landscape, but this has application in all areas. It really is a wonderful colour, and it's a personal favourite.
Obviously, as you know, and I'm very grateful that I'm picking up Opera Rose. The reason you were able to, put something like Opera Rose in your range is that you've recently launched a big watercolour range, which has given you enormous access to a lot of pigments. And I'm sure if I'd come to you and said, Michael, I'm celebrating 40, Opera Rose is a colour, you would have said, well, Mark, that actually is quite a tough colour in an oil side of things. But now you've had access to all these pigments, which, I mean, I'm surprised you didn't disappear with
I know.
hundreds of new pigments.
I know, I really shouldn't be here. I should be at home playing around with colour myself. Yes, I agree. Yeah, it allowed me to get my hands on so many new pigments. And so that was, let alone celebrating the 40 years, which was a coincidence, of course, but to suddenly have so many new pigments to play with and get mesmerised by and be able to sort of look at them and think, oh, that would look gorgeous in oil. So really that was the driving force more than the 40 years. It was just a coincidence it came to about 40 that they're not always a direct. What I'm saying is that it doesn't always mean that we have them in both oil and watercolor, but it's just getting my hands on the initial pigments.
Yeah.
Was the impetus behind it, really, but it's just...
I'm not sure, is there another Opera Rose in any other brand for oil?
In oil, I honestly don't know. It's quite common in watercolor, yeah. But when I looked at it, I just thought it's almost what I call rude, It's almost...
It's very powerful, sitting here.
It pokes your eye out. I mean, a lot of people with our brilliant pink, for instance, which they also found quite sort of shocking, is almost like a chewing gummy sort of pink. This goes one stage further. I mean, this is almost nuclear. I mean, it's just, it's rude. You see what I'm saying? It's it's almost like, when could you use that, Michael? But no, have fun with it.
It's going to be rude and ready for you all soon.
Oh, yeah.
So, absolutely.
As I keep saying, it's got to be fun.
So what pigment number is that? I mean, now I'm beginning to sound a bit like you.
Oh, I know. This is a combination, actually, of quinacridones. It's pigment red 122, essentially, which, of course, a lot of you are very familiar with. It's the standard magenta in many ranges. But there's also another secret ingredient, another quinacridone I've got in there, which I'm afraid I'm not going to tell you.
That quinacridone, I'm not even going to pronounce it.
Quinacridone.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I've heard a lot about that recently.
Oh, it's a very modern, very versatile pigment. There's many companies around the world that manufacture them, probably used mainly in the automotive industry. And you have to remember, we as an industry of artists is very small in terms of the pigment world. The big obvious industries are things like automotive or packaging and things like that, where pigments get used, and so we're so often on the shirt tails.
So how new is quinacridone in relation to?
Heavens! I'd have to look
from an oil
books.
painting point of view. I mean, is it the last 20 years, or is it?
I first noticed them probably 30, 40 years ago, but I mean, I came into the art materials and artist world thing in a very traditional way. I would have come in through the alizarin crimson route, and I would have never given a quinacridone a second look. I mean, rose madder, yes, but I mean, these are all wacky colours, which even as a student I wouldn't have. They just weren't part of my thing. It was like, if I would have been a musician, I would have been a violinist as opposed to playing the electric guitar, and that's certainly an electric guitar.
You've got another colour there, I can see. In fact, like our couch, it's not quite in the same...
not quite, no.
Not quite, but in the green.
The cadmium green.
Why has cadmium always been seen as the premium?
It makes a very, very light fast. I mean, you have to remember that a pigment has to have two virtues, if you like. It has to be interesting, has to be a useful colour for us artists, and also has to be light fast, or as light fast as we can possibly get it. So it's two things it has to cover, and of course both cadmium yellow and viridian are extraordinarily light fast colours anyway, and the combination of them of course gives it that really almost tropical green, as you can see there. We were asked for this for so many years, and I was reluctant to do it because I was thinking, come on artists, I'm sure you can mix those two together to achieve your green, can't you? But no, we and part of the discovery process of this was the 40 new colours, was thinking I want to give artists something to really play with and be useful. So there we are, cadmium green.
Fantastic. And last of the 4 of the 40, I think we just picked. You're going to, but it seems like I can't even pronounce this, so I'm going to just hand it over.
It's a lovely word, actually, verditer, isn't it?
Verditer.
Yeah.
So where does that come from?
Oh, well, it's a sort of generic name for
blue verditer.
Blue verditer. Yeah. There was certain copper-based pigments. Oh, I'm talking about sort of 200-300 years ago, and they weren't always light fast. The tendency with certain copper blues is they tend to go green when they're in oil. So this is a synthetic one. This is a combination of 3 pigments I have in here, which resembles very closely the actual blue they had. Sometimes it would go by the name of Bice, B-I-C-E, or Bremen and things like that. So it was and azurite it's one of those pigments which sometimes could be stable but generally wasn't. So I wanted to replicate it and actually give artists. It's also a nice excuse to give artists a nice bright blue to play with.
So tell us about the process, because people always call your colour. I think the word is clean, and in today's world, we need to understand what's going into the. That's going into your tubes?
Well, as I say, it's not what I put in; it's more what I leave out.
Okay. But maybe we don't want to know maybe we do want to know what you leave out.
But that's the interesting point, because the less of the other stuff you leave out, the less disrupting it is doing to the light wave. As the light comes into the room, bounces off the paint surface, comes up to the eye, the more materials that can be hidden within a paint, which scatter the light, absorb it, and send it in different directions, interfere with it. I think if it's a bit like white noise, if you were sort of comparing it to music and background sound, what you want, of course, is a clean, crisp wave of light coming off that surface, coming up to your optic nerve, and therefore the brain gets the message of, whoa, that's nice and clean, for want of a better expression. Clean and crisp. And as I always say to artists, it's easy to mute colours down, but you can't crispen them up. It's a one-way route with mixing. So, but it's a colour which, for me, I want to go. I want to stop this conversation and go and paint. Actually,
well,
you know what I mean? It's that.
Yeah, I think
it's
we probably do that.
It's how I respond to colour all the time. Yeah. All right. Now you want me to actually show you some colours? Yeah.
I do.
Let's have the fun bit, shall we? Now, the first one I'm going to show you is the Turner's Yellow, which is the Pigment Yellow 216, one of my personal favourites, and you're going to see why. To me, this is such a gorgeous... Hang on a moment. I always do this. It's to me, it's almost like praying before you paint. Oh, it's gorgeous. I love it. Such an incredibly versatile colour. Now, I know a lot of artists like to use these. I use these, because I just love the tactile quality of the paint. And I mean, can you see that? To me, I'm already in raptures there, because I know that that's such a versatile colour. The texture, it's silky, it's gorgeous. Now, I think it'd be fun, because we've got some other lovely colours here. So I'm going to put them out as well, and I'm going to see if I run out of fingers or not. I'm going to try the cadmium green first. And I think they almost look horrible together, don't they? I like putting colours together sometimes that you don't think will work, because you can be quite surprised. I'm probably going to get...
Have you ever put these two together?
Never.
No, fantastic.
Not deliberately, anyway.
No, I understand.
Just checking it again.
Excuse me, I need to check.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was keeping it all to myself, wasn't I? Yeah, well, you can put the top on as well then, can't you?
Perfect, yeah, I'll do that.
Now, okay, let's just have a look at it as a green on its own, first of all. Great covering, nice and silky again. And I'm just going to go straight in. And instinctively as an artist, I know roughly where this is going to go, but so often you find your surprise, which I actually love. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, no, that's...
I mean, immediately you've got a sort of a nice landscapey, green, grassy colour. It is what I was expecting. Sometimes you get little combinations. I call it going on a journey. You end up somewhere you don't expect to go. And I'm just going to deliberately blend that. I mean, and the tonal value there is almost a grey quality going on in it. I mean, I do this all day. I'm one of these lucky guys. I get to play with these things 24/7. And again, looking on my skin, even that, it makes me respond and so on. And without further ado, I'm also going to grab the blue Verditer and see how long I can go before I start getting paint on tubes. Let's put that over here. I mean, this colour is so useful to... Well, a landscaper obviously could use it in skies. And, let's just put some down there. Gorgeous. This is a combination of cobalt and cerulean and some white to synthesize the appearance of the original blue Verditer base colours I talked about earlier on. And, oh, yeah, can you see that?
Yeah.
Just that beautiful bottly green that's coming through there. Yeah. I just have to do that. I don't know whether I'm addicted to the smell of paint more than I am the visuals of it, but either way, I'm some type of addict for paint.
I think the visuals speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the freshness. Can you see the freshness there? And now we're going to do the really crazy thing, which is going to put the almost, as I call it, rude, not Perot's in there. And I think you'll all agree this is a scenario of colour you'd actually never probably end up with, and I can't think of any context of a landscape or a portrait, but we're just having fun here today, so I'm going to put that down over there. And so far, I've managed to get the paint to only go where I want it to go. So
Let me help you there, Michael.
All right, thank you. So probably left with, I think I'm going to go for the thumb. See where I can get in with it. Oh, I almost want to blaspheme when I saw that, but I managed to stop myself.
Bit, yeah, with the yellow there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
I can see that working.
Spread it out and... Oh, look at that. It's almost a vivid orange, which... I mean, the yellow is quite muted. The Turner's yellow is quite muted. But when you see it like that, I mean, you've almost got the luminosity of a sunset. Would you agree?
Look at this opera rose. It's,
Oh, it's staggering. I mean, it's just... I mean, it really comes into its own in the transparent. In the mass tone, yeah, it's still vivid, but my goodness, in the transparent.
Yeah.
Do you want to play with the opera rose?
Definitely. Been waiting for this.
Go for it then, shall we? Let's put out a decent dollop this time. We're not messing around. We're going to be big painters here today.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, yeah, look at that. I mean, already I can see it sort of... Oh, gosh. I mean, this really comes alive in that transparency there, and I want to get the silky thing going with it. And see what I mean about fluorescent?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
Now let's put a dollop of this miracle medium in beeswax out as well. I'll try and find a... Just want to see what's going to happen with this, because it should really bring both into their own. Yeah, just it sort of makes it go further, adds more translucency. It's what I call a rude colour. Look at that. It's almost pokes you in the face. Do you want to have a go?
Certainly does. No, I think Michael, but I do want to have a go because I want to. Wow, just
go on, go for it. Don't be shy with it. That's it.
Oh, that's the...
It's gorgeous.
Look at that. Cadmium green?
Sure, cadmium green. I'm going to go for it this time. And yeah, you are going to paint again, I promise you. Let's have a look. I'm going to put out more.
Wow.
I mean, even that, I mean, looks fluorescent, doesn't it? And you can build up a nice impasto with that. You can see there. That would hold the brush stroke. Buttery, of course. That sound effect was me, by the way, wasn't there? Come on, now's your turn.
So is buttery a term that's used in oil painting?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if it's part of the rule book or anything like that, but everyone uses phrases like buttery and silky and things like that. And
I mean, if I can understand why it feels very buttery. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
It's got to be usable, and so that there's a pleasure for the artist with a brush or a knife. It's got to be sort of responsive. Yeah, doesn't that look good? I mean, the vividness is another aspect of it. It's got to be a useful colour. It's got to be useful texture. There we go.
So, Michael, no, sorry, but it's time to play with blue. And blue, as you know, we lived in the UK for a long time, and a lot of people don't know that I imagine blue is the number one colour, whether it's skies, seascapes, or anything else.
Well, you and I both know that the amount of ultramarine blue that we've sold to artists over the years is almost legendary, and it's...
Exactly, and that's why I was saying to add something else in that palette and arrange. I'm really excited to see what this looks like in relation with where someone might use this actually. So I'll give it
anywhere.
to you.
I mean, the choice is the artist. Why don't you squeeze this one? Hey, come on.
Squeeze, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to turn you into a proper artist. Go on, go for it.
That's not going to happen, but I'll do my best.
Don't be silly.
Oh, I just like, just the feel of that. Look at that. That's the way that came out.
No way that would not hold a brushstroke.
I mean, I have to say, just looking at your tubes, they're art, aren't they? I mean,
well, thank you.
I mean, I think it's lovely.
I'm lucky. I do one of these jobs that I really enjoy, and oh God, every time I
you see how I just put so much on there that.
Your turn.
Oh.
Come
so
on,
I'm liking
you're dying to dive in.
Well, the smell coming off the palette knife actually this is very strong.
Yeah.
I don't even need to lift it, but no, I like this. I'm just looking at. I mean, one of my favourite colours is, and probably my all-time favourite is cerulean blue. Actually,
that's unusual. And the strange thing is, it's a colour that I, as an artist, have never really been drawn to. And the other crazy thing about it is when I clean it off palette knives,
Yeah.
if for instance I use mineral spirit, it smells citrusy for me for some I don't know why, but it just does. The thing that's phenomenal about this, I think, is the covering power. I mean, yes, it is opaque, but you can see if I wanted to sit there for 5 minutes, I'd be able to cover that square evenly all over.
But Michael, I think, I mean, you've hit just a really good point. I mean, unless you get them out of the tube, people don't understand the covering power of your paints, and actually that's probably one of the main things people do need to understand.
Just a question if I can do this without actually getting any paint on your nice table, but
don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's just could go on and on. Sometimes I try and describe to people that the best way to think of our paints is as a concentrate.
Yeah.
We load the pigment right up, and that's what you're seeing here, that enormous covering power.
Michael, I've got the Tunbridge Wells set here. Obviously, we've got 10 colours. We've been through the blue verdure, the cadmium green, the opera rose.
Yeah.
And I know we've only got time for one more. So
Turner's yellow.
You Turner's yellow.
Turner's yellow.
Turner's yellow. Okay, so that's perfect. So Turner's yellow it is. Series 2. Explain to me a little bit, why paints get series numbers.
It's the cost of the raw materials, and so this is a reasonably modest cost pigment, as opposed to something like a cadmium, which is much more expensive.
Okay, no, that's good.
And that's it in a nutshell. And also, depending upon how thirsty the pigment is, how much oil it takes up, you can get an expensive pigment which happens to be very thirsty and therefore compromises by making a lot of paint. In this case, it's a modestly priced pigment and doesn't take up a lot of oil, so hence it being Series 2. We try and get them into the lowest series we can because I really want it to be in the hands of artists rather than sitting around waiting for a sale, put it that way. Now, are you going to drive this or am I?
No, I think you should drive this. This is the last one, and I think...
oh, yeah, look at that, baby. Oh, yeah, hang on.
One of the colours, and I know we haven't talked about it a lot, is that, and I don't know, maybe it's the wisteria or lavender, and they just evoke something, and I just wondered, in terms of the yellow, which one would you prefer? What do you feel, which one's going to work best?
Well, instinctively looking down over here, that catches my eye.
So no, that's fine. So the vivid blue. Yeah, no, that's in the turquoise sort of space.
It is, but I mean, I'm thinking skies and landscapes.
Okay, no, that's...
So let's put... I mean, I know we're meant to be just doing one... This has been taken over by us as artists, hasn't it? Here we go.
Yeah, but
why not?
We've got a bit of a collection here.
I just want to...
let's
try that one. Just
a new one, yeah.
I just want to start off so people can see that.
Yeah.
Get a bit of taste of the colour, and then it sort of... Oh, yeah, it's going into a green. Look at, not surprisingly, it's going into a green, but yeah, even that's interesting, isn't it?
Look at that. Pull it. Pull it across. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that's when I do this. I
Come on, your turn.
I like it when it stops. I think often artists continue too much, if that makes sense.
You've got to step away from the canvas.
You've got to step away. Yeah. And I would step away there, but I can.
Yeah, I know, but. This is my painting. You had your opportunity.
That's true.
Yeah, come on. You're going to finish it, or we're going to both step away?
No, I'm going to let you finish.
Okay, I think we should step away. Yeah,
okay.
It's a finished work of art.
It is. Yeah. Howard Hodgkins would be very proud of that. He's someone who said a lot of positive things about your
He most
paint.
certainly did. I mean, he became sort of quite an addict, shall we say.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, I have to say.
Great artist, yeah. Sadly no longer with us.
That's true. But luckily his works are.
You bet, yeah.
Michael, thanks so much for being here on the Cast Couch.
It was a pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
We'll see you very soon.
You bet.